During this video, you're going to see some key points, including the rubric. We'll go through the rubric and its connection to the instructions, so you're sure not to miss out on any graded features of problem number 3. We'll also talk about some resources that can really help to take your project to the next level, to really improve it and make it spectacular. And lastly, we'll hit some pitfalls, some places in the past we've seen kids lose points or have their grades decline, so you can be sure to avoid those at all costs. So feel free to, as always, fast forward us, rewind us, and get to the points you need to, but let's all make sure to do our best on problem number 3. One of the key failure points we've seen in the past is that somebody's responsible for a part of the project that is not one of their strengths. You should be in a group right now with at least 3 people with different strengths. Be sure to divide the responsibilities of your project accordingly. Make sure that your CEO is in charge of that Trello building, the time frame, the responsibilities. Make sure your research and development is in charge of the science background, literature review. Make sure that your marketing person is in charge of that graphic design and the presentation. But make sure you're all functioning together as well. You want to be checking each other. Remember our motto, trust, but verify that everybody's getting their jobs done effectively.
One of the other failure points in this project is also one of my big pet peeves, and that is not understanding the whole framework of this presentation. That you are a company selling your work. You're trying to get other people to understand the passion that is your project. And so basically what we see most of the time is this flat, apathetic delivery where people just kind of blah blah, this is what we did, that type of thing. So I want to remind you the video we watched earlier in the year, that TED video from Nancy Duarte about the Martin Luther King speech and the Steve Jobs speech, that have that same structure, that this is what is, this is what could be, that back and forth, that undulation of the emotions really gets your audience invested emotionally. It's a very, very simple, easy thing for you to do, especially in this project, for you to talk about how your project is better than what currently exists, what is, what could be. So don't forget that. Make sure that you have some energy and some passion in your presentation. That's the whole point of this sales pitch idea.
The next key failure point that we often see is ideas that aren't fully complete. When you think your product through, make sure you go all the way to the end game, so that if somebody asks you a question, you can explain your thought process and explain why you did this or why you did that, or the decisions you made along the way. So make sure you have well-developed, well-rounded ideas with research to support them and products to demonstrate the things you came up with. People with the most well-rounded, well-thought-out, well-completed projects are the ones that do the best on problem number 3.
And the last thing to remind you, which is another famous failure point in previous years, is that groups often forget to collaborate. It's a divide and conquer mentality, but it's a divide and let's all show up the day we need to present and let's all do our little silo. The collaboration part is where you really will get your strength. So you need to be collaborating throughout the project. You need to have these due dates. You need to have these this agreement with your group that everybody is making progress and you're seeing everybody's progress and you understand this cross training, basically, where you know what your partner is doing, you know what your other group member is going to be doing next, all of that stuff. You got to know what's happening in your group. So set those due dates before the due dates that Clemmer and I give you, so that you have that built-in buffer to make sure that you're going to be successful. Make sure that if things aren't working in your group, that you are communicating with Clemmer and myself. And the best way to come to us with that is to be able to show us something like your Trello board that has tasks laid out and you have people in your group who aren't doing their thing. Trello is a perfect tool to be able to show that. Not only is it helping you be successful where everybody does use it and it works well, but it also is a backup if things aren't working well that can help kind of protect your personal grade if things aren't going well in your group.
So this section of the video is going to probably be the most important for your success, and it's going to walk you through each section of the rubric and show you the things you have to make sure that you get completed and handed in. So now we want to look at the rubric specifically and address each one of the rows on the rubric to help you get the best grade possible, starting with row number 1, which is the organization of notes and research and development of product. You'll notice this has to be highly organized notes and research. To get the best grade on this row, you're going to want to have a OneNote resource that is well developed, has really clearly labeled pages and sections depending on how you choose to lay that out. Within that context, you should have good citations of high quality scientific research that supports all of the decisions you made on every aspect of your project, including the product you create, as well as all of the marketing items and everything from beginning to end. The more support you have for decisions you made, the higher grade you're likely to get within this row of the rubric. Next, we'll move on to the second row of the rubric, the content of product criteria. You'll notice that this is labeled as part 1 of 313, and this coincides with your directions for 313. Part 1 is titled Identifying Criteria, Exploring Possibilities, and Selecting an Approach. This addresses specifically you hitting the main points that are within that section. So there's a bulleted list in step 4, for example, where you have to, in written form, identify the function, form, safety, reliability, biocompatibility, and aesthetics. You also need to have your design brief completed within this section. So please follow those instructions carefully and don't miss anything that needs to be included. We can then move down to the next row in the rubric, which starts part 2 of the instructions, and that is the design proposal. It says you have to have thorough and clear sketches of the design, include a complete list of materials, tools, etc., and also have another group's critique included and identified. You should take the advice of the other group, or if you do not take their advice, you need to address why you thought your approach was better than what they recommended. So that shows that you've gathered feedback and considered that within the creation of your product. The next row in the rubric is for the prototype itself. Please notice that this is a ×3 multiplier. It says your prototype is masterfully constructed, and it clearly demonstrates the functionality of the product. That is the key. You have to make sure that you demonstrate the function of your product when you are presenting it to the class. It doesn't have to work as it would in real life. We understand that we are in high school and don't have the capability to manufacture things, or we don't have the lab settings to create hypothetical scenarios, but it should demonstrate how it should work. This can be a physical model that demonstrates, this can be a graphic model that demonstrates, but in some way should demonstrate how your product would function within a real setting. Within part 3, this is a great opportunity for you to potentially foray into the world of the 3D printer. A really well created and printed product might even get you up into the killed it column, depending on how you do with that. Then we can move on to the next row of the rubric, which is testing and evaluation. And notice this is part 4 of 313. So in your directions, if you're looking at part 4, you'll see that there's product testing guidelines that you need to address. They need to be completed thoroughly and clearly demonstrate the experiments and how they would impact your product and its function. We're not actually running any experiments. We are just going through the process of setting it up. You'll notice that step 5 is where you would actually begin gathering data and running the experiments. That is not what we're doing. We're only doing steps 1 to 4 in the product testing guidelines. Then we can move on to part 5 of the instructions, which is this row of the rubric, the company and product info. Please notice that part 5 is broken up into 1, 2, 3 different rows of the rubric, each with a ×2 multiplier. Although each individual item is only a ×2 multiplier, when you put part 5 all together, that obviously becomes a much more significant impact on your project. First thing we're looking at is the company and product info. Please realize this is missed on a yearly basis. You have to have a high quality company name, logo, and slogan, and a product name and logo that are displayed and presented to the audience. If we don't see that differentiation between your company name, logo, and slogan and the product name and logo, you're going to lose some points in this area of the rubric. So please be clear about that in your presentation. You move on down to here and you see that we need product and packaging for your product. You need a thorough description and a visual of the product and packaging, and it has to show why it will be an effective improvement compared to other products. Even if you're just marketing it to a hospital setting, it's still going to come boxed or packaged in a safe way. So make sure you think about the visuals of your packaging and about the function of your packaging as you are creating your items for this part of the rubric. Next, we see the place and positioning and promotion, and that's logically identified. Specific detailed marketing plan is presented, including well-crafted samples of marketing materials. As you're in your instructions here, it's going to tell you about making that marketing plan. It's going to tell you about doing the creative processes related to marketing your product, including how you're going to promote it, who the consumers are going to be, where your campaigns are going to target, and how you're going to inform the consumers and persuade them to use your product. You have your organization of presentation, you have your quality of visual presentation, you have your preparation of presentation, and you have your presentation skills. These things are all the same as they have been in our other presentations. Mr. Burke gave you some advice earlier in this video about how you're presenting and making sure that you are selling it and really making your product seem like something that your consumers are going to want to purchase. So please read these all carefully to make sure you get the maximum points available for your presentation. And notice that the overall grade for your project is out of 108 points, which, as with all the other projects, will be a significant impact, hopefully positively, on your grade.
To help you with this project, I'm going to remind you of 5 resources that will be dramatically helpful in making your group much more successful. The first one is Trello. Trello is going to be the best option for your group to coordinate all of the multi-headed beast that is this project. There are lots of little facets out there, and without having something like Trello, you are undoubtedly going to lose those little things that add up to big points. So use it, track everything, make sure you do not shoot yourself in the foot with completing tasks. The next couple apps are graphic design apps. We have both of them on the iPads in the classroom, and feel free to use them obviously in class, but come in before or after school and use them as well. The first one is Logo Creator. Logo Creator is exactly what it sounds like. It is an app specifically for creating logos. It's very easy to use, lots of customization in there. So get in there and dig in and see if that's going to be something that's going to help you with the business design, graphic design part of the project. The other option is Pixelmator. Pixelmator won App of the Year last year. It is a great graphic design app, very easy to use. We did an after-school tech session on this, so somebody in your group who was there knows how to use it pretty easily, and you can find that to be a lot more hands-on and give you a lot more artful customization options than Logo Creator, which I feel sometimes can be a little bit flat. Still good, but a little flat. The third option is another award-winning, easy-to-use app, which is actually a website, and that's called Canva.com. At Canva.com, there are all types of social media templates, but then there's also a lot of basic graphic design options for you. Very easy to use, very powerful website. It's free. They do have some elements, is what they call them, which cost $1 if you want to use a particularly awesome picture, but I would just download one off of Google and then upload it and save you $1. But Canva.com is a great resource for you, web-based. And then lastly, our old standby from the ER project is SketchUp. And SketchUp is going to be great for those of you who are doing your innovations or your product and don't have the technical or physical capacity to build your model, your product. You can use SketchUp to model it, whether it be a microscopic thing that you couldn't do and realistically show to the class, or whether it's anything else. SketchUp is going to be a great tool for you to use here. So don't forget about some of those things you've been using in class previously. Make sure that you are using these tools and taking some of that time investment from earlier in the year and returning some of that back for other projects, this one included when it comes to SketchUp. So those 5, I would say, are the best things that you could be looking for to help you with this, in addition to just your standard Google Docs and whatnot. But make sure that you find these tools and make sure that you are getting all of these little parts done, and you will be successful.